A man arrested for allegedly shooting and killing a woman in the Northwest Valley. Police say Marvin Simmons opened fire after an argument, killing the victim while she was trying to drive away. It happened near Schomburg and Farm Roads. That's just west of Centennial Hills. Police say the two had a romantic relationship. Simmons has been booked on murder charges.
March 7th, 2022. A white Chevrolet Camaro sits in a driveway in Las Vegas. Inside, a 28-year-old woman slumps over the steering wheel, blood spreading across her chest. Her sisters are screaming. One gunshot. One bullet. And the man holding the gun? Her boyfriend. Standing in the garage doorway like he just took out the trash. But here's the twist. She wasn't there to fight. She was there to return his shoes and walk away. That's it. Drop off his stuff, close the chapter, move on with her life. She'd already sent the breakup text. She'd already discovered his lies. She was done. So what went so wrong that it ended with her dying in front of her own family? Welcome to True Crime Malice, where we break down the cases that make you question everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and the people sleeping next to you. Before we get into this, I need you to do something for me. Drop your city in the comments right now. Let me know where you're watching from. Because this story, it could happen anywhere. And if you think this sounds intense already, just wait. We're about to dive into a relationship built on secrets, a trip to Miami that exposed everything, and a text message that basically signed a death warrant. Her name was Coutura. She was a model, a business owner, and a mother. And the man who killed her had been lying to her face for 8 months straight. Let's talk about it. Coutura Denise Fiesel wasn't just another pretty face on Instagram. She was the kind of woman who turned childhood dreams into reality while most people were still figuring out their lives. Born in 1993, Coutura grew up in Las Vegas, the city of lights, excess, and endless possibilities. But while everyone else was chasing quick money at the casinos, Coutura had her eyes on something bigger: fashion. From the time she was a kid, she was sketching designs, playing with fabrics, and telling anyone who'd listen that she was going to make it in the industry. And she did. By 28, Coutura had built herself into a legitimate force. She wasn't just modeling, though she was damn good at it. Her Instagram was fire, professional shoots, street style, high fashion, casual vibes. She could do it all. But what really set her apart was her business mind. She opened her own boutique called Coutura Echelon Clothing, and it wasn't some hobby shop. This was a real operation: curated pieces, unique styles, and a brand message that hit hard. Confidence has no competition. That wasn't just a catchy slogan, that was how Coutura lived. She believed that when you looked good, you felt good, and when you felt good, you could conquer anything. Her boutique wasn't just about selling clothes, it was about empowering people. Especially women. She'd mentor young models trying to break into the industry, promote other women-owned businesses, and genuinely lift people up. In a world full of competition and jealousy, Coutura was out here building a community. Her phone was packed with notes, color palettes for new collections, fabric samples she wanted to try, business plans for expanding the boutique. She had dreams of going national, launching her own signature line, and becoming a household name. At 28, she was just getting started. But Coutura wasn't all work. She had a life outside the boutique and the photo shoots. She was a mother, devoted to her child, and determined to set an example of independence and strength. She was tight with her sisters, like ride or die close. They weren't just siblings, they were best friends. They celebrated together, supported each other, and showed up when it mattered. And for years, she'd been focused, laser-focused, building her brand, raising her child, grinding every single day to turn her vision into reality. She didn't have time for distractions or drama. Relationships? They were on the back burner. She had goals. Summer 2021, Coutura walks into a networking event for entrepreneurs. The kind of thing she'd been doing for years. Business cards, small talk, potential collaborations, standard stuff. But this time she meets Marvin Simmons. 31 years old, confident, well-dressed. Says he's a real estate investor, and unlike most guys who just wanted to slide into her DMs with some weak pickup line, Marvin actually asked about her business. He wanted to know about the boutique, her plans for expansion, what inspired her designs. They talked for hours, not about surface-level nonsense, about goals, ambition, building something that lasts. For Coutura, who'd spent years grinding alone, this felt refreshing. Here was someone who seemed to understand the hustle, someone who didn't feel threatened by her success, someone who actually listened. They exchanged numbers, made plans to meet again, and just like that, the relationship kicked off. The first few months, straight out of a romance movie. Marvin went all out. Weekend getaways to places Coutura had never been. Romantic dinners overlooking the strip. Surprise gifts that showed he was paying attention. Flowers. Thoughtful gestures. The kind of stuff that makes you think, okay, maybe this is real. On social media, they looked perfect. The power couple. Two ambitious people building their futures together. Coutura's friends saw her smiling more, laughing more, letting someone in for the first time in forever. Her sisters were happy for her. She deserved this. But if you looked closer, and I mean really looked, the cracks were already forming. Marvin's schedule was all over the place. He'd make plans, then cancel last minute, always had some excuse. Business emergency, family thing, something came up, and when Coutura tried to pin him down on specifics, he'd get vague, real vague. Then there was the location thing. Marvin always wanted Coutura to come to his place, never wanted to meet at hers, never wanted to go somewhere neutral. It was always on his terms, his turf, his timeline. At first, Coutura didn't think much of it. Maybe he just liked hosting. Maybe he was particular about his space. But over time, it started feeling less like preference and more like control. His phone was another issue. Always face down, always on silent. If it buzzed while they were together, he'd glance at it, then flip it back over without explaining. And if Coutura asked who was texting, he'd brush it off. Work stuff, nothing important, just a friend. Whenever Coutura brought up concerns, like, hey, why do you always cancel on me, or why can't I meet more of your friends, Marvin would flip the script. He'd show up the next day with an expensive gift or plan some elaborate date. He'd tell her she was overthinking, that she was stressed from work, that he loved her and she needed to trust him. It's called deflection. And it works, because instead of addressing the actual problem, you're now focused on the grand gesture, the apology gift, the romantic moment. And the issue? It just gets buried. Coutura's friends started noticing changes. She seemed more anxious, more careful about what she said or did around Marvin. One friend later described it as walking on eggshells, like Coutura was constantly trying not to set him off or start an argument. But here's the thing Coutura didn't know, the thing Marvin had been hiding since day one. He had a whole other life. Another woman, 2 kids, a house across town where he played the role of devoted father and committed partner. Marvin wasn't just keeping secrets, he was living a double life. And he'd gotten so good at it that neither woman had any clue the other existed. For 8 months, Marvin juggled both relationships, 2 homes, 2 families, 2 completely separate worlds, and he would have kept going if Coutura hadn't started asking too many questions. By early 2022, the walls were closing in. Coutura was getting suspicious. The excuses weren't adding up anymore. The stories had holes, and Marvin could feel it. So he did what any desperate man would do. He planned a trip, a romantic getaway to Miami, one last chance to smooth things over and keep the lie alive. But that trip was about to blow everything wide open. Have you ever dated someone who just didn't add up? Someone who made you feel crazy for asking basic questions? Drop a comment if you've been there. Because what happened in Miami is exactly why you should always trust your gut. Let's get into it. March 2022. Marvin books a trip to Miami, tells Coutura it's going to be special, a chance to reconnect, get away from the stress of Vegas and just focus on them. On paper it sounds perfect, but the moment they board that plane, something's off. Fellow passengers later reported seeing them argue, not loud, screaming fights, but tense, uncomfortable exchanges, the kind where you can tell someone's holding back because they're in public. Coutura's body language said it all. Arms crossed, turned away, that look on her face like she was done pretending everything was fine. They get to Miami, check into the hotel, and the tension doesn't break. If anything, it gets worse. This was supposed to be the trip that saved their relationship. Instead, it's falling apart in real time. And then it happens. Coutura gets her hands on Marvin's phone. We don't know exactly how. Maybe he left it unlocked. Maybe she knew his passcode. Maybe she'd been suspicious for weeks and finally decided to look. But whatever the reason, she finds it. The proof, the messages, the photos, the entire second life Marvin had been hiding. Another woman, 2 kids, a family he'd been going home to while telling Coutura he was working late or handling business, every excuse, every cancellation, every vague answer. It all made sense now. He wasn't busy. He wasn't stressed. He was with them. There's a voicemail that was recovered after Coutura's death, her voice shaking, barely holding it together. I've found something on his phone. I don't even know who he is anymore. That line hits different when you think about it. 8 months. 8 months of dates, trips, gifts, promises. 8 months of believing she'd found someone real. And in one moment, scrolling through his phone, all of it disintegrated. The man she thought she knew didn't exist. He was a character Marvin played when he was with her. Coutura leaves the hotel, alone. She's gone for 3 hours. No one knows exactly where she went or what she did during that time. Maybe she called her sisters. Maybe she just walked around Miami trying to process the betrayal. Maybe she sat somewhere and cried. But when she comes back, she's different. She's not crying anymore. She's not begging for answers. She's done. She walks into that hotel room with shopping bags in hand and a decision already made. There's no conversation. No, let's talk about this. She's past that. Marvin tries to explain, tries to smooth it over like he always does, but Coutura's not hearing it. She pulls out her phone and sends him a text. Clear, direct, final. I know everything now. I'm returning your things. After that, we're done. You can't live 2 lives forever. Read that again. You can't live 2 lives forever. She wasn't just talking about the relationship. She was calling out the entire lie, the double life, the manipulation, all of it. Marvin panics. He knows what this means. If Coutura shows up at his house, there's a chance, a very real chance, that his other girlfriend will be there. The 2 worlds he's kept separate for 8 months are about to collide. And when that happens, everything falls apart. Both relationships, his family, his reputation, everything. So he starts texting back, desperate, frantic. Don't come to the house. We can meet somewhere else. This isn't a good time. He's not worried about Coutura's feelings. He's worried about getting caught, about his other girlfriend finding out, about losing control of the situation. But Coutura's not playing his game anymore. She's not negotiating. She's not giving him the chance to manipulate her one more time. She sends one final text. Too late, already on my way. Now here's where this gets absolutely insane. Marvin's other girlfriend, the mother of his 2 children, is at the house. Right now, at this exact moment, she has no idea Coutura exists, no idea that Marvin's been living a double life, no idea that another woman is about to pull up to her driveway. And Marvin? He's stuck. He can't stop Coutura from coming. He can't explain the situation to his other girlfriend without exposing himself. He's trapped in a lie of his own making, and the walls are closing in fast. So what does he do? He makes a choice that takes less than 5 minutes, but ends a life. Let's talk about March 7th, 2022, the day Coutura Fayezel drove to that house to return a pair of shoes and never made it home. Coutura gets into her white Chevrolet Camaro. Her sisters are with her. They're not there to start drama or back her up in some confrontation. They're there because they love her, because they know this is hard, because when your sister's heart just got shattered by 8 months of lies, you don't let her face that alone. The drive across Las Vegas feels longer than it is. Coutura's got a bag with Marvin's stuff. Shoes she'd bought him before she knew the truth, maybe some other things he'd left at her place. It doesn't matter what's in the bag. What matters is that she's closing this chapter, returning what's his, drawing a line. She's not going there to fight. She's not going there to confront his other girlfriend. She just wants to drop his things off and be done, clean break, move forward. They pull up to the house in the Northwest Valley. Suburban neighborhood, quiet street. The kind of place where people mind their business and nothing bad ever happens. Coutura gets out, walks to the door, knocks. No answer. She knocks again, harder this time. She knows he's in there. She can feel it. Still nothing. Inside the house, Marvin's other girlfriend is holding their baby. Marvin told her not to answer the door. Didn't explain why. Just said, "Don't open it no matter what." She's confused, but she listens. She has no idea who's outside. No idea that the woman knocking is someone Marvin's been dating for 8 months. Coutura's frustration builds. She didn't drive all the way out here to be ignored. She moves toward the garage. That's when Marvin comes out, and the argument explodes. We don't know every word that was said, but witnesses, including Coutura's sisters, described it as heated, voices raised, tension thick enough to cut. Marvin's angry that she showed up, angry that she's threatening to expose him, angry that he's losing control of the situation. At some point during the argument, Marvin shoves Coutura. Let that sink in. He puts his hands on her, pushes her. A woman who's smaller than him, who's unarmed, who's just trying to return his stuff and leave. That's when Coutura makes the smartest decision she could have made in that moment. She walks away. No more yelling, no more arguing. She turns around, heads back to her car, and gets in the driver's seat. Her sisters are already inside, shaken but relieved. They're thinking the same thing. Let's just get out of here. This guy's not worth it. Coutura starts the car. She's about to drive off. The garage door closes. For a second it feels like it's over, like the confrontation's done and they can finally leave. But then the garage door opens again, and Marvin steps out holding a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun. Coutura's still in the car, hands on the wheel, engine running. She's not advancing toward him. She's not threatening him. She's sitting in her car, about to leave. Marvin raises the gun, and he fires. Some reports say 1 shot. Others say 7. What we know for sure is that at least 1 bullet hits Coutura directly in the chest. The impact is immediate. She slumps over the steering wheel, blood spreading across her shirt. Her sisters start screaming, the kind of screams that rip through a quiet neighborhood and make your blood run cold. They're watching their sister die right in front of them. They can't stop the bleeding. They can't help her. They're trapped in a car with a woman who's fading fast and a man with a gun standing 10 feet away. Neighbors hear the gunshot. A few think it's fireworks, someone setting off firecrackers in the middle of the day. But then they hear the screaming, and they know something terrible just happened. Minutes pass. Coutura's sisters are hysterical, trying to keep her conscious, begging her to hold on. Finally, someone calls for help. Paramedics arrive around 5:30 p.m. They find Coutura unresponsive in the driver's seat of her Camaro. They rush her to University Medical Center, working frantically to stabilize her. But the damage is too severe. The bullet tore through vital areas. There's too much blood loss. Hours later, Coutura Denise Fiesel is pronounced dead. 28 years old. A mother, a sister, a business owner, a woman with plans, dreams, and a future that should have stretched decades ahead. Gone, because a man couldn't handle being exposed. Inside the house, Marvin's other girlfriend is in complete shock. She's holding their baby, trying to process what just happened. Police are swarming the property. And that's when she learns the truth. The woman who was just killed outside her home, that was Marvin's girlfriend. A girlfriend she didn't know existed. She'd been lied to too. For 8 months, Marvin played both sides. And now, one woman is dead and the other is left holding the pieces of a life that was never real. Coutura did everything right. She recognized the danger. She walked away. She got in her car and tried to leave. And Marvin Simmons shot her anyway. Because for men like him, it was never about love. It was about control. And when he lost that control, he chose violence. Now let's talk about what happened next. Because Marvin didn't run. He didn't try to hide. He did something that makes this whole thing even more twisted. Marvin calls 911 himself, not to get help for Coutura, not to say I just shot someone, send an ambulance, no. He calls and tells the dispatcher he fired upon people in his driveway. People, plural, like Coutura and her sisters were some kind of threat, like he was defending himself from a mob. That phone call is going to haunt him in court, because in that moment, he's already trying to control the narrative, already setting up his defense, already painting himself as the victim. When Las Vegas Metro Police roll up to the scene, Marvin doesn't resist, doesn't try to run. He walks out, hands up, and surrenders. Calm, collected, like he's been expecting this. They cuff him, read him his rights, load him into the back of a patrol car, and just like that, Marvin Simmons is on his way to Clark County Detention Center, booked on charges of open murder and discharging a firearm into an occupied vehicle. Now, open murder is interesting. It means the prosecution hasn't decided yet whether to charge him with first-degree or second-degree murder. They're leaving the door open depending on what the evidence shows. And trust me, the evidence is about to bury him. Detectives start interviewing witnesses immediately. Coutura's sisters give their statements. They saw everything: the argument, the shove, Coutura walking away, the garage door opening, the gun, the shot. They watched their sister get murdered. And they're telling police exactly what happened. Neighbors back up the timeline. They heard the gunshot, heard the screaming, saw the white Camaro in the driveway with Coutura slumped over the wheel. Forensic teams process the scene. They recover the bullet, analyze the trajectory, confirm that Coutura was shot while sitting in her car, not advancing, not attacking, sitting in her car. Then there's Marvin's own words. Because during his police interview, he tries to sell the self-defense story, and it falls apart immediately. He tells detectives that Coutura was aggressive, that he feared for his family's safety, that his girlfriend and kids were inside the house and he had to protect them. But then investigators ask the obvious questions. Did Coutura have a weapon? No. Did you see a weapon in her car? No. Was she physically threatening you? Marvin pauses, then admits, she's smaller than me. So let me get this straight. You shot an unarmed woman who was smaller than you, who was sitting in her car, who was actively trying to leave, and you're calling that self-defense? Gets worse. Marvin admits he fired multiple shots, 7, according to his own account, toward the car as Coutura was preparing to drive away. Not one panicked shot. 7. At a retreating vehicle. That's not self-defense, that's execution. Detectives also uncover the text messages, the ones from Miami, the ones where Coutura says she's done and Marvin begs her not to come to the house, the ones that prove he knew she was coming and had time to think about what he was going to do. And then there's the motive, clear as day. Marvin's double life was about to explode. Both women were going to find out. His kids were going to find out. His reputation, his relationships, his entire carefully constructed world, all of it was crumbling. And instead of facing the consequences like an adult, he grabbed a gun. Inside the house, his other girlfriend is being interviewed by police. She's in shock, holding their baby, trying to understand how the man she thought she knew just killed someone in their driveway. That's when detectives tell her the truth. Coutura wasn't some random woman. She was Marvin's girlfriend. For 8 months he'd been splitting his time between 2 households, 2 relationships, 2 lives. She had no idea. None. She thought Marvin was faithful, thought he was working when he disappeared, thought she knew him. She didn't. And now she's a witness in a murder case. The evidence is overwhelming, the witnesses are consistent, Marvin's own statements contradict his defense, and the prosecution is building a case that's going to be nearly impossible to beat. But Marvin's lawyers are going to try, and what happens in that courtroom is going to determine whether he spends the rest of his life behind bars or gets a chance at freedom. Let's talk about the trial. The prosecution comes out swinging. They lay out the timeline. Summer 2021, Marvin meets Coutura. For 8 months, he juggles 2 relationships, 2 homes, 2 completely separate lives. Then Miami happens. Coutura discovers the truth, sends the breakup text, says she's coming to return his things. And Marvin? He panics. So when Coutura showed up at his house, with his other girlfriend and kids inside, Marvin made a choice. He grabbed a gun, and when Coutura tried to leave, when she got in her car and was about to drive away, he shot her in the chest. Prosecutors bring up the forensic evidence. The bullet trajectory proves Coutura was sitting in the driver's seat, not advancing, not threatening. The car was facing away from the house. She was leaving. They play the 911 call, Marvin's voice calm and calculated, saying he fired upon people in his driveway. Not, "I accidentally shot someone," not, "I need help." He's already framing it like he was under attack. Coutura's sisters testify. They describe the argument, the shove, watching Coutura walk back to the car, watching the garage door close, then reopen, watching Marvin step out with a gun, hearing the shot, seeing their sister slumped over the wheel. Their testimony is devastating. There's not a dry eye in the courtroom. The defense tries to salvage what they can. They argue Marvin was scared, that emotions were running high, that he didn't intend to kill Coutura. It was a tragic mistake made in a moment of panic. But the prosecution shuts that down fast. 7 shots fired at a retreating car isn't panic, that's intent. And the fact that Marvin admitted Coutura had no weapon, that she was smaller than him, that she was trying to leave, that destroys any claim of self-defense. Marvin doesn't testify. His lawyers know putting him on the stand would be suicide, so he sits there, silent, while the evidence piles up against him. The jury deliberates. It doesn't take long. Guilty murder. Not manslaughter, not accidental death, murder. The sentencing comes down, life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Marvin will be in his 50s before he even gets a chance to argue for release. And even then, there's no guarantee. Coutura's family sits in the courtroom, holding each other. The verdict doesn't bring her back. It doesn't erase the trauma. It doesn't give her child a mother or her sisters their best friend. But it's something. It's accountability. It's justice. Marvin Simmons will spend decades behind bars because he chose murder over honesty, because he valued his lies more than Coutura's life. Now let's talk about what this case really teaches us. Because Coutura's story isn't just about one man's violence, it's about the warning signs that were there all along. First, the secrecy. Marvin controlled when and where they met, always his place, always his schedule. Never wanted Coutura around his friends or family. That's not preference, that's compartmentalization. He was keeping her separate from his real life on purpose. Second, the deflection. Every time Coutura questioned him, he'd show up with gifts or plan some elaborate date. He'd make her feel guilty for asking basic questions. That's manipulation 101. Instead of answering honestly, he'd distract her with grand gestures until she stopped asking. Third, the unpredictability. Constant cancellations, vague excuses, phone always face down. These aren't quirks, they're patterns. And when someone's hiding their phone like it's classified information, they're hiding something. Fourth, the physical aggression. Marvin shoved Coutura during their final argument. That wasn't the first time he'd been physical. It was just the first time witnesses saw it. Violence doesn't appear out of nowhere. It escalates. And finally, the most dangerous moment, when she tried to leave. Statistically, leaving an abusive or controlling partner is the most dangerous time. That's when they realize they've lost control. And for some, like Marvin, that loss of control triggers violence. The system didn't fail Coutura because she didn't report abuse or ask for help. She was actively removing herself from danger. The failure was that a man with a gun decided his reputation mattered more than her life. According to national data, nearly 1 in 4 women experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And when firearms are involved, the risk of death increases by 500%. 500. Coutura's story isn't unique. It's a pattern that plays out across the country every single day. Different names, different cities, same outcome. If you or someone you know is seeing these red flags, secrecy, control, deflection, aggression, don't wait. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is free, confidential, and available 24/7. Drop a heart in the comments if you're standing with survivors, because awareness saves lives.